even when he says that Saturday afternoon shows and Saturday morning shows are cleaned up when McMahon makes those claims, it's such nonsense because you hear them chanting the obscenities in the background. So, and plus they're promoting the primetime stuff. McMahon's even tried to change what a minor is. He says we put up a warning, 14 and below. Wait a second, is he going to hand a 15-year-old his car keys? Is he going to have any problem with someone having sex with a 15-year-old? I mean, is he going to sell alcohol to a 14-year-old? What are we talking about? So he's carefully shown that, he says, well, we have an adult demographic of over 60%, but that demographic begins with 14 years old. Those are minors.
Actually, the 60% would be 18 and over, because it's 62%.
And what percentage of that, and what percentage of his audience would you suppose, Dave, and you know this a lot better than I do, would be responsible for buying his merchandise? I mean, would be under 18 years old.
I think that most of the merchandise is probably, not all of it, but the vast majority would probably, okay, the mean age of his audience, average WWF consumer would be 23, 24 years old. I think that the merchandise probably skews quite a bit younger than that.
You bet.
I think it depends. There's certain things there that...
Do you have it, Richard? You don't have any... Well, maybe Richard can do. No offense, but do you have WWF action toys?
Not WWF.
WCW?
Nope.
Okay, you have wrestling action toys?
Beg your pardon?
You have wrestling action toys?
Nope.
Well, you're a big wrestling... Now, who has action toys? Why would they make toys while at the same time saying that this is inappropriate for kids?
Well, there is a market for action figures out there, though I do admit, most of their toy market is sold for the kids, and it isn't going to, like, the specialty shops that just sell these things to the adult clientele, with Toys R Us instead of hitting your smaller, big city, like, comic stores.
There are adult collectibles, but I think that we all agree that that's the vast minority of what those things are aimed at.
Yes.
Yeah, but they exist, though. But yeah, those toys are clearly marketed towards, I don't know what age. I mean, some of that stuff, like the twist 'em stuff and all that. I mean, I can't even imagine a teenager going for that. That's got to be like 9-year-olds. Some of the stuff.
Yeah, I would imagine.
Yeah.
And yet he puts on a warning that this stuff might be inappropriate for people 14 and... Who is he kidding? That's a dodge. It's another rationalization. It's like, but he doesn't have the exclusive on that rationalization. When all these congressional hearings here in the States, Richard, were being endeavored to, put warnings on video games, so you put a warning that it's not for kids. Well, who'd that stop? Kids? No, that was like a come on. You tell somebody, don't sit and you see a sign that says wet paint. What's the first thing you do? You go over to touch it to see if it's wet.
The problem with the video game thing is, and excuse me if I get off a bit topic, because I still play video games, is that there's two schools of thought that there was the rating thing, or there's just censor the hell out of it back to the Mario Brothers type thing, which I don't want to see. And I agree with you. I don't want to see like kids playing 10-year-old kids playing like. Xenogears comes to mind as a video game they can't play because it's got really deep themes in it, but for a 20-year-old, I found it fun.
Do you have children?
No, I don't have children.
Someday, Richard, you will. And, at 7, 8, 9 years old and the peer pressure begins, that's another thing he talks about. The man always talks about, well, it's up to the parents, it's up to the parents. Meanwhile, on the other side, he takes out his violin and he says, I grew up without a father around. So one hand he's saying, it's up to the parents, the other hand he says, I never had a father in my life. So he's so full of it on that end. But wait till the peer pressure starts when you have kids, and your 8-year-old is watching the guy grabbing his crotch and screaming, suck it. You're going to say, I can't believe that I indulged this guy all these years. I just can't believe what a fool I was. No offense. I predict that'll be what happens.
We've got to take a commercial break. I want to mention one thing because I just read about it. I don't know if you're aware of this, film, but there's a video game out there. It's not a wrestling video game. I think it's a Duke Nukem game where Duke Nukem is all tired out or something like that, and he takes steroids and he comes back and he's revitalized. Anyway, I just read about that, and one one of my girlfriend's
you don't mean vitamins now.
brothers actually mentioned that to me, and was also in Time magazine. Duke Nukem's a video game character.
Oh, I didn't even know that. Hey, we've got some old guy, Dave.
Look, I want to make a couple of mentions of some of these email things we got here. This is from Joe Nagel, who says, I was wondering with the rumored return of Shawn Michaels to the WWF, which actually there's rumors he might be there tonight, and with his friend Justin Credible winning the ECW title, does it open the door for HBK to make a few appearances for ECW? I think that's pretty much up to Vince McMahon. If Shawn Michaels has indicated that he wants to do some ECW TV, but of course he's under contract to Vince McMahon, it's up to what Vince McMahon wants to do for Paul Heyman this week. That's from Dominic, who says, what the hell is WCW doing with the David Arquette-Eric Bischoff match? Yeah, I'll bet that will do a 1.8 quarter. If this was part of their 6-week plan, I don't want to know the rest. Let's see. Phil says the WWF has wrestlers dying in their 20s and 30s. The only drug-related death in the WWF I can remember was Brian Pillman. There must be a whole lot more. Could you please say who else died in their 20s and 30s in the WWF? It's not so much guys, let's see, as far as in the WWF, but in wrestling in general that have died in their 20s and 30s, like Spicoli, who worked in the WWF but actually was working for WCW when he died. Rick Rude was actually 40. But there have been, it's more of a, as I mentioned this earlier. Eddie Gilbert was 33. He was wrestling in Puerto Rico. He had wrestled in the WWF early in his career. Kerry Von Erich, actually that was a suicide more than a drug death, but there have been the proliferation of deaths in wrestling has been very, very high throughout the industry. It's not a WWF problem. It is a pro wrestling problem. This is from Court Bauer. He goes, I've just got wind. It is true that there was a conversation between Sabu and Afa that you reported. There was a misunderstanding on my behalf about this matter, and I would like to apologize to Paul Heyman, ECW, and those who worked so hard on the memorial show for passing judgment regarding Paul Heyman and ECW, if there was a willingness to allow Sabu to appear on the memorial show. Okay, so let me check that out. Let's see. This is from Eric, who says, I think the reason a lot of wrestling fans hate Phil is because the only time he seems to bash wrestling, it's Vince McMahon, it's the WWF. He does make good points, but the WWF is not the only game in town. Look at WCW. They've had contracted wrestlers die, and it's pointing to the WWF. What about WCW?
I've killed Ted Turner. I've lampooned his Goodwill games when he pledged $1 billion toward the UN to advance goodwill among people. I wrote 2 consecutive columns about how this phony is, he's worried about all the children of the world except the kids in America. Are you kidding me? When he brought Hulk Hogan, after Hulk Hogan was shown to be a character built almost exclusively on steroid abuse, I killed him for that. I've gotten all over Turner for this stuff.
Let me just go through this. This is from Dustin James, who's wondering if the Hardys are going to be...
haven't I?
Oh, God. I have read... you wrote a column on... what was the column that you wrote on... was it the one on... There was one that you wrote on Turner... Was it 3 months ago? I'm trying to remember, but... what was the basis of it? But it was something to do... I mean, I remember the column very well. Have I gone after McMahon in a more virulent sense, in a more steady sense? Absolutely. But Turner, I would not count me among his buddies. Let's see. Let me just see. Okay, this is addressed towards a phone call. I take offense to what was said earlier because I'm 15 years old and I know the difference between fake and real. I don't think the problem is with 15-year-olds. I think the problem is coming from younger kids. I consider myself to know quite a bit about my age and a lot of what goes on backstage. According to the term, you could call me a smart mark, but I don't hit people with chairs or swear because Steve Austin does it. So who is that directed at me? Whoever brought that issue up, the people in when Dan Rather or someone addresses wrestling, they go right to the issue as to whether it's fake. I mean, it's been fake for 100 years. It's not even an issue anymore. I know my point isn't whether it's fake. It's whether it desensitizes people.
That's my issue, and I'm convinced it does desensitize people. When you pitch negative ethnic stereotypes and hatred and misogynism and homophobia and graphic violence to beat the band, I think it diminishes us all at every age. I mean, that's not the point, whether it's fake and whether this guy, and even when the wrestlers say, if it's not fake, why do I have this hip replacement? Well, you have the hip replacement because you're doing stunts, because it is a physical endeavor, and accidents happen, and even when you get hit with a chair with a loosened seat to it, it's still going to hurt, but that's not even the point anymore. The point is who we're aiming this stuff at and the price we pay for it. And, of course, I'm spitting in the wind because I'm fighting a losing battle here. This stuff's getting more and more popular. It's going from, just as sports, as mainstream sports are going from over-the-air television to cable